Uh, yeah. Oh. Here's a little quick popper. Little quick. Hit him with the 1-2, quick jab. I like it.
That one took a little effort. Had to think about it.
Well, that was the issue. That was your problem, is that you were thinking about it. Ladies and gentlemen, with that horrendous note, we are ashamed to bring you a brand new season of Running Out the Clock. I am your friend Joseph Craven. I am joined by Crambles Johnson. I'm joined by Kay Farkins, and I'm joined by Grabe Arns. And we are in the middle of May. Well, actually, we're at close to the end of May at this point. I just realized it was the 26th. We are at the end of May.
Time no longer matters.
It does not. Coronavirus has disrupted any and all semblance of time and logical order of progression. And instead, we are now forced into this world where it just means more. That's right. We regrettably have to start talking about SEC football again. Because, of course, it's almost June. And SEC football season starts normally in April, but was just delayed because of the coronavirus. So we're here now to start off our summertime preview episodes. And we're going to do a little bit of a different format with our previews this year than what we have in the past couple of summers. We'll get to that in just a little bit, because we have to start this episode off the same way that we always do. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is by talking about the Noles. That's right. Talking about the Noles here on ROTC, a time-honored tradition. And really, the only real question to ask about the Noles right now is their head coach. Is he Mike Norvell? Or is it going to be Mike Naville? Is he going to work out for him? Start us off. Crambles, go.
Define workout.
Like
bench presses on the sidelines.
Squat
lunges.
Yeah.
Then a hard yes.
Okay, that's fine. Define it how you want. You said yes. We're moving on. Keith, what do you have? How are you defining this, and how are you answering? That's the question now.
Definitely. If he's hitting some like 40-yard wind sprints during the game, absolutely. I see him as being a galvanizing character for the team, in which everyone just like he kind of endears himself, because just like Red Lightning, like you never know when he's going to burst into a sprint, and that's kind of a game within the game.
We need to get one of the ROTC interns to look up what Red Lightning's up to these days. So somebody figure that out. Great.
Hopefully he's the ball boy for the Redskins.
Great. Hopefully he's done better than that. He would be the most successful member of the Washington organization.
Right.
Grabe, how are you defining workout, and is Mike Norvell going to work out for the Seminoles?
I'm defining Mike Norvell working out or not working out as whether or not that he will turn the Florida State football program around back to its glory days.
It's a weird interpretation, but continue.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of off the radar a little bit. As long as Clemson and Dabo's there, I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to work out. I don't think he's going to bench press, turn a football program around, or even take a brisk walk.
I don't think he's going to try out for anyone. I don't think it's going to be any definition of working out. No, yeah, it's going to be difficult to overcome.
Real question is he going to get more than 20 games to work out?
No, this is college football. If you need 20 games,
we haven't won a national title in 4 games, you're fired.
If you need 20 games, you're not worth the job. All right, Keith, I believe that you have a game for us to play this evening in this recording session. So I'm going to turn it over to you, the game master, our dungeon master, Keith. I'm going to send it over to you and let you explain what it is that we're going to play before we get into the bulk of this first preview episode.
Dungeon Master. Yes, everyone get out your D&D boards and your dice and
My
RPG.
hold on, my player's manual is in the hallway closet. I gotta go grab
I've already
that.
fallen asleep, nerds.
That's all right. I'll go grab that. So
Chandler just got debuffed -1 attack for every roll.
nerf him. Just absolutely nerf this guy.
Nerf so hard. What a loser. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to play a game that's one of my favorites. It's going to be called Overrated, Underrated, Favorite, Least Favorite. And this is a format that we can play quickly in most of our episodes in which we don't have a quiz. And the premise of the game is exactly how it sounds. It is overrated, underrated, favorite, least favorite, given a specific, subject matter. So this week's overrated, underrated, favorite, least favorite is going to be sitcom dads. And we're going to go around the room and we're going to say, give us your favorite, your least favorite, your overrated, and your underrated amongst sitcom dads. And so we'll do it as like we'll do overrated first, and go around, and then underrated, so on and so forth. So sitcom dads. This does not include cartoons. This is strictly the traditional sitcom format.
Live action sitcom. Okay,
Live
wow.
action sitcom.
Ooh, man, I'm gonna have to think about that.
I was gonna say, so you don't have like a list for us to choose from. We have to come up with this on our own, correct?
Correct. And this is any year. Like you can go all the way back to the Cosbys or the Jeffersons. You can do as
It's so
recently
worse
as
as Bill Cosby.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a consensus.
Yeah. So we'll start with overrated. Gray.
Dang, I hope you weren't going to pick me first.
Well, you're directly above me in the four square of Discord.
You know what? Kind of going along that note of being above in a square, I'm going to say whatever his first name was, Brady. Mr. Brady from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
You know?
Greg? There was a Greg Brady, right? Was that him?
Sure.
Or
Let's
was that
call
one
him
of the
Greg.
kids? Who cares?
I'm gonna say Greg Brady. You know, he was never around when the bunch was getting into trouble or breaking their sibling's nose or anything like that. He was either, you know, like drawing up some kind of blueprint in his little architect room, and kind of letting you know, the maid lady. What was her name?
Alice.
You know what I'm talking about? Alice.
Yeah.
There we go.
Alice.
And,
Yeah.
and the dad's name was Mike Brady.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
had
Greg Brady.
just looked it up. Greg Brady.
Yeah, might as well be Greg. Nobody cares, but you know.
Yeah, he was never
Chad
around.
Brady for all we care.
He just let the maid Alice take care of the kids. You know, that's overrated in my book. That's the best I could come up with. I'm having a hard time thinking of sitcoms at the
That's
moment.
good though. That's good though. Greg is the oldest son. I did look that up real quick.
All right.
That was that was all I had.
Yeah. Joseph, overrated sitcom dad in your opinion?
Overrated sitcom dad. I pulled up a quick list of like notable sitcom dads so I could have in front of me. I assume that's not cheating because I really hope you didn't expect me to remember sitcom dads off the top of my head. Yeah, they're a little higher expectation than I would have put on myself. Overrated. Danny Tanner, Full House.
I was actually thinking about that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go overrated with him because when you think of the Full House characters, you think of, I mean, obviously you think of the uncles, you think of the kids themselves. Like, you think of everyone except for Danny Tanner first when you kind of reminisce. So, Danny Tanner, in my mind, overrated sitcom dad. Don't at me.
Please add the Joseph Craven on Twitter with your opinions. Chandler.
I'm going to stay in everybody's favorite San Francisco-based sitcom.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go not with Danny Tanner, but Jesse Katsopoulos.
Ooh.
Because, look, he's married. Like, Joey makes some sense. Joey's not married. Didn't have kids. Jesse doesn't. They don't move out. They just keep living upstairs. Like, dude, get your own house. You know, like
they do totally just move into Danny's attic.
Stop
like the whole
chasing
family.
this. Stop chasing this absurd rock and roll fantasy. Stop riding your motorcycle on top of buildings. You got a wife and kids. Stop letting your wife cheat to get your kids into Stanford or USC or wherever it was, and let her go to jail.
Yep.
He may not have had anything to do with that, but it happened. Yeah, Jesse Katsopoulos
from doing it.
Yeah, right. He's a terrible dad.
That's good. I like that.
That actually, terrible dad might have been another category, but I'll just come back to it. It's fine.
Oh, but
favorite, overrated, underrated, and terrible.
Terrible. Overrated
one.
works though because he's one of the ones that people talk about loving. When people are like, "Oh, we love,"
everyone loves him.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
No,
because he's such a good dad to his twins. But like
Right.
you said, they moved into his like best friend's attic and practiced music in his best friend's basement.
Right.
And there was that time where he rode his motorcycle on the edge of that building. Like, come on.
It's just dangerous.
Oh, Full House.
Mm-hmm.
I still have only watched like 2 episodes of Fuller House.
It's
Apparently
twice,
that's a really good show.
twice as many
It's
as I
fine.
watched.
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, I just feel like I need to watch it just so I can partake in any online chatter about it, of which there is none. My nominee for most overrated sitcom dad is going to be Tim Allen from Home Improvement. Yep, he's a good comedian, good actor, but he runs a subpar Home Improvement TV show in which his friend Al Borland is the better Home Improvement person. Constantly ruins stuff, blows stuff up, and doesn't do a whole lot of parenting. He has to get all of his advice from the guy behind the woodboard.
That's a good point.
Also known as a fence.
I don't
No,
think so.
woodboard.
Yeah.
Series of wooden boards.
Yeah, not where I'm
together.
from. It's not called that where I'm from.
Yeah. You don't use single words to describe an entire event. Yeah. So
What does that mean?
Tim Allen from Home Improvement, very overrated dad.
Okay.
Everyone loves him, but he's kind of meh to me. Just meh. All right. Underrated. Gray.
Underrated. I don't know if this classifies as a sitcom per se, but I'm gonna say Andy Griffith or Andy Taylor, I guess is what it would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Andy Taylor on the Andy Griffith Show. That's not a sitcom, I don't think, but
I would
don't
say it
think.
is.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's a situational comedy, I suppose. You know, when you think of Americana, you know, the Andy Griffith Show might not be on the first list of things you would think of, but it's going to be in the top 20 pages of things that you think of. And when you think of the American father on television, what better father could you picture than Andy Griffith? Taking after his boy, you know, sheriff of the town, Mayberry, holding it all together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he did a great job being a father.
He set the foundation for basically every other TV dad from then on out. You know, he was everybody's dad.
Yeah.
Then.
Thanks, Joseph.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Weirdly aggressive.
Yeah.
All right, Joseph.
This is underrated. Is that right?
Underrated. Underrated TV sitcom dads.
Okay. This one actually I did not have to look up because my wife is currently rewatching this show, so it's fresh on my mind. But underrated sitcom dad, I think, is Red Foreman from That 70s Show.
It's a good choice.
Yeah, he's mean, he's demeaning, but he's used tough love on his delinquent children. So I think that as a dad, because everyone likes him as a sitcom character, he's a hilarious character. But as a sitcom dad, I think he's underrated in that regard. Red Foreman.
Good content. Chandler.
Underrated sitcom dad is going to be Donald Don Wrigley from The Adventures of Pete and Pete. He is also known as just Dad or Pete's dad, and I don't really have a lot to say about him other than I remember so vividly the episode where they go to the beach with a metal detector, and he finds like a 1968 Cutlass Supreme buried in the sand,
That's a very Pete and Pete show.
And then they just drive it home. And to me, that shows
Totally
a dad
fine.
who is frugal,
Yep.
who makes wise financial decisions. That shows me a dad who is thorough and gets the job done. And I think he's just a very, very underrated dad because I think that entire show is underrated, and I am furious that it is not on any streaming service.
You just can't find it anywhere.
Not even on DVD. You can only get them bootlegged.
Something that I've found weird about those like 90s Nickelodeon TV shows that I used to think were on for like 20 years. There's almost always like they're only like ran for like 3 seasons or 4 seasons or something like that. Like there's not very many episodes.
That actually was like a part of their contract. Where they would get like an episode. They would get like a run of 60 or 70 episodes, and then kill them.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about
he
Pete
means
and Pete.
actually kill them. I want to point that
Yeah,
out. When the contract was
All-
done, that's why you
all
haven't
the
seen
actors
anything out of that cast.
Yeah, that's why they don't do anything else. They're all dead.
If it weren't for the show, whatever the show figured out with Summer Sanders, I would believe you. But both Pete's were major players in that show. Maybe they're just slaves to Nickelodeon,
Probably
Which
is.
is the same as death.
more or less.
So
Your contract is you have to host Nickelodeon award shows for the rest of your life. Man, I haven't thought about Pete and Pete in like 10 years. Like the quintessential episode of Pete and Pete to me is the one where like the younger Pete has the same inspector for all of his underwear,
oh yeah.
Yep.
and he finally
Oh,
gets to meet him,
Yeah.
and they have a barbecue.
Yep.
They like do like barbecued wings or whatever, and he eats them pristinely and then stacks all the bones together, and they're like, "You failed. Barbecues are supposed to be messy." And it was a real teachable moment for all Americans that
Yep.
sometimes
Yep.
what you're supposed to do is get dirty.
Yep.
But Don Wrigley was fascinated with the bone stack. He just was looking at it. He spent the whole episode just looking at the bone stack.
Yes.
I watched the intro to the Orange Lazarus episode a couple of days ago, and it was fantastic. It's a like if we want to just stop talking about SEC football and start talking about Pete and Pete on this podcast,
Let's do it.
I'm in. Let's
let's
do
do
it.
it.
Now
Let's-
Pete and Pete podcast.
Yeah, let's do from here on out. Let's do a Pete and Pete rewatch recap podcast. I'm in.
Pete and Pete time.
Yeah.
I mean, it also means more, too.
Oh man!
Even
And my
the theme
younger
song,
Pete had a tattoo of like a Lua dancer on his
Petunia.
forearm.
And he made her
Yeah.
dance.
Yep. Yep.
How about that for a message? A 12-year-old boy has a tattoo on his forearm.
I'm used to it. I work in Rankin County, Keith.
It's true.
Ooh.
We're born with tattoos in Rankin County.
Yeah, definitely.
I had mine surgically removed.
My underrated sitcom dad is going to be Uncle Phil. Mostly because a lot of people forget that he's a father, even though he's clearly a father. But just the fact that he's such a good like father figure to Will, probably even more so than he is to his actual children, because they're all kind of complete disasters,
The
except for Ashley.
worst.
Yeah. But yeah, I always really enjoyed watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, obviously, Will Smith is good, and there's Carlton and his dancing and stuff like that. But like James Avery was always such a really important part of that show, and there's a lot of really cool moments between he and Will. So, not
There was a
not a
there was
name
a
that you.
there was a video on Twitter not long ago of all the cast members like watching some of the highlights of Uncle Phil on the show, and they specifically got Will Smith's face watching the scene where Will's dealing with his dad, his actual dad not being around, and it's like it's unbelievable. That's one of the best scenes in TV history. Like it's incredible.
Where his dad like walks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So James Avery, by the way, the actor, is fascinating to me because he was an actor, he was a voice actor, he was like a musician, he was like a stage actor. Like, if he wanted to do anything, he did it. Like, professionally speaking. Just fascinating guy to me.
He also had such a presence on screen. Like,
yeah.
All the Will Smith fat jokes aside, like he was a commanding person on screen.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. All right, moving right along, going to the favorite, least favorite section of this game. Gray, we're going to go favorite.
No, do least favorite so we can end on a high note.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, can we do them both together for the sake of time? Because
sure.
We kind of need to move on. I'll actually nominate myself to go ahead right now because it looks like Gray is on the phone. So I will jump in here and give my favorite, least favorite, if that's all right, Keith.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
My favorite was going to be Uncle Phil, and I feel like I can't really throw that out there now that you already mentioned him. So just to be different, my favorite sitcom dad is going to be a bit out of left field, mostly because he's not really prominent character, not really super featured, but he is the father of my favorite sitcom character, who I've already subtly referenced today. I'm going to go with, played by the one and only The Fonz.
Yes.
But as an adult, I'm going to go with Dr. Lou Saperstein from Parks and Recreation, father of Jean-Ralphio Saperstein, as my favorite sitcom dad, mostly because he gave me Jean-Ralphio, who I adore. So,
oh man,
there you go. So I'll wrap it up real quickly by saying my least favorite sitcom dad then is going to be a callback to my earlier answer. It's Red Foreman. I just don't like him. He's mean. He's demeaning. He's just hard on it. And whenever he's on the screen, I laugh at him, but I hate him. So there we go. I think that's what makes him a good character. I both love him and hate him all at the same time. There you go. Red Foreman.
Nice. Chandler?
Favorite sitcom dad is going to be one Alan Matthews from Boy Meets World. He's phenomenal.
I applaud you for that one.
He loves his kids so well. He loves Sean so well. And he's just kind of a no nonsense, blue collar, hardworking guy, and he's awesome. And least favorite, I don't have any idea on this one. I think I'll say least favorite is going to be season 5 Michael Bluth. Just because everything in that show just became such a disaster in Arrested Development, and it's still funny. I still watched it. I'll still watch it again, but they kind of managed to take like the one redeeming character in the show, and I think that was by design. But they took the one redeeming character in the show and just made him awful.
That's always writing decisions like that. Always kind of frustrate me a little bit in sitcoms.
I'm sure I'll come up with a better answer at some point, but yeah, him. I'll go with him.
We're gonna be knee deep in football talk, and you're all of a sudden just gonna spout out an answer. I love it.
Right? Yeah.
All right, my favorite was between two dads that are
Between Two
very,
Dads. That's an underrated sitcom right there. Between Two Dads.
I didn't even know that was a sitcom. So,
It's just keep talking.
but I'm leaning towards Carl Winslow.
Mm-hmm.
Just like hardworking dude. He was a cop in Chicago. Helped out Bruce Willis during a terrorist attack.
Right.
Like, just a really good guy, and always knows what to say, and like just kind of does the right thing. And again, like I don't know why my two positive dad figures in this game are dads who were father figures to people who were not in their actual family. But Carl hated Steve, but he also loved him very much. Kind of similar actually to my relationship with Baron. Always annoyed by him, but still loved him. So Carl Winslow is my favorite sitcom dad. My least favorite is Bill Cosby. Never really liked the Cosby Show. Never really liked him as a character, and then the actor is a scumbag. So whatever. There it is.
Were any of the characters on Friends fathers?
Yes, actually,
Yeah,
Ross. And Ross
Okay.
is my favorite character.
Then Ross is
All
my
of
least
TV.
favorite TV dad.
Yeah, I didn't
Because
think about that. But
Friends
that's
is terrible.
There you go. I was a little upset that you ruled out cartoons so early on, Keith, because Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers would have been either my favorite or underrated dad if cartoons were allowed. Like,
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
If cartoons were allowed, Hank Hill would definitely be my underrated TV
yes,
dad.
absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that was when you said sitcoms. I was like, oh, it's Hank Hill.
Yep. I get. You know
Easy.
what? We also just played a secondary game of best cartoon dads.
There it is, Hank Hill.
Yep.
Congratulations, Hank.
There we go.
Great. Real quick, who is your favorite and least favorite sitcom dad?
Well, my first and second favorite sitcom dads have already been taken. My favorite is Red Foreman, also because I'm rewatching that '70s show.
It's so
Nice.
good.
It's great. Like I had never watched it all the way through. Really, I just kind of would catch bits and pieces every now and then. But I mean, he's a hardworking dude. He's funny. You screw up, he'll kick your ass.
Exactly. So good. I didn't watch that show at the time either, and I also realized that. So it's funny that Ellie's rewatching and I catch episodes with her. It's also I realized that I never got around to watching Avatar when it was on Nickelodeon back in the day, and those shows were on at like the same time, and it made me realize that like in the mid 2000s, I didn't watch TV at all. Like I didn't watch a thing. The only show from the mid 2000s that I watched and still watch whenever I want to today is Scrubs. That's it. That's all I got. Anyway.
Hey, I haven't seen many sitcoms. I was really struggling here. Really struggling. I guess I just didn't grow up in a household that watched a lot of sitcoms or something. I don't know.
You're the young blood, man. You really grew
Yeah.
up past the glory days of the sitcoms. Who's your least favorite dad?
Man, least favorite.
If you wanted to say Ross also, that's fine.
Right, Ross.
Yeah, let's say Ross. I hate Ross.
Yeah,
Ross
He's
is
my
good
least
answer.
favorite dad.
Ross was
I've never run across a Friends fan that liked Ross ever.
Ross was a good dad to his monkey.
He was a better dad to his monkey than his actual child.
Exactly. All right, let's talk.
Didn't he
Both of
lose his monkey once though?
He did. Yeah, it was just a bunch.
A little better dad to his monkey than his
Right.
children.
Still, his child still had to grow up with Ross as his father, so that's the issue there.
Quite unfortunate.
Yeah. Would you rather be lost or would you rather be Rossed? That's the eternal question of Friends. Got him.
The new Lost reboot, Lost.
So, talking about football now, the purpose of the podcast, that was a nice little reintroduction to how terrible a podcast this can be to listen to.
It's only gotten worse.
Yeah, coming out of the COVID-19 hiatus. So
COVID-19.
Gotcha. So the way that we're going to do previews this time around, instead of our traditional team previews, is we're gonna turn it into a bit of a game here, in which we take one of us is assigned a team or volunteers to take a team and presents what they think in very brief terminology, what they think the best case scenario for that team this season will be. We are going to do 3 teams at a time, and we're going to start in order of like the best finishes in the SEC this past season. So in this episode, we're going to cover the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers, who of course won the SEC title, won the national title, were one of the most dominant football teams ever, but especially in recent memory. We're going to go over to the runners-up in the conference and the first-place team in the East, the Georgia Bulldogs. And then we're going to go back to the perennial powerhouse, but who did not win the SEC title or anything this year. We're going to go with Bama. So that's going to be the order of things in this recording session here. And the rules are simple. Someone's going to present their best-case scenario for the team that they volunteered to cover. And the rest of us will give a quick summation on whether we agree or disagree and what we would change about that best-case scenario. Let's jump into it. Gentlemen, which of you volunteered to cover the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers?
That'll be me,
Oh,
Keith.
Keith, the floor is yours, sir. The courtroom is now in session. Please present your case as to what the best case scenario for LSU will be.
Your Honor, may I have a brief recess?
Already? Good God, man, we just started. What do you need to do? I mean...
No, it's going to be hard for LSU to surpass last season, considering they were one of the best football teams in NCAA in a while. One of the more dominating ones, having 6 or 7 wins against like top 10 teams.
It's going to be hard for them to field a team with how many people went pro from that team last year.
Yeah,
Forget topping anything.
And that's entirely the issue. Joe Burrow had one of the best seasons that a quarterback could possibly ever have. He's gone to the NFL now. Guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who a lot of people thought was kind of the X factor for that team. When the offense seemed to sputter, it was usually Clyde who would kind of get it going. And there's a lot of concern about LSU's offense going into the Oklahoma game because he was hurt and would he be back? But he was kind of the heart and soul of that team. Really good player. He's gone.
He was the heart and soul also because LSU is required to have at least one prominent player with a super Cajun name.
Yes, very, very, very French Cajun. Yes.
Yeah.
French words are the worst.
Wow, hot takes, hot takes, sir.
But the beignets.
Hot beignets, sir. Hot beignets. So with all that they're losing, what's the best case scenario for them going into this year, Keith?
I think best case scenario, if the quarterback comes in and the offensive line gels and they pick up some chemistry. Like the good news for them though is that Justin Jefferson was the only big piece from their wide receivers that left. They still have Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall, who were monsters also.
They're all right.
So they should be good there. They have 3 running backs coming back. So despite Helaire leaving, they're still going to have a deep backfield. But there's obviously no way that they top this past season. And I don't think they've even come particularly close to matching it. I would say best case scenario, they're like a 9-3 team. And Alabama jumps back up into the top spot potentially. And that's absolute best case scenario. There's a world here where they just aren't quite the same after losing their core, and they turn to a middling team. But yeah, so best case scenario is I think a 9-3 team.
All right. What's if you had to point out one thing you think is like what could propel them to their best case finish there? What would that one key element be?
It's all gonna hinge on their quarterback play, honestly, because they've got players everywhere else. If they have somebody who can competently get the ball to their best player's hands, then they'll be fine. But I mean, that might be a cop out because the offense always runs through the quarterback. But you've seen teams kind of quote unquote hide not great quarterbacks with the play of other players. But especially when you're coming from Joe Burrow to anybody else, it's like there's definitely gonna be a spotlight. That's gonna be a lot.
Miles Brennan, baby, come on.
I was gonna say, why are you hating on Miles Brennan like that, man?
His
last name is Brennan. He's taken over the Southeast Louisiana name right then and then. He's taken that title from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All right. Yeah, I mean, but it's fair. I mean, the quarterback, what you're saying makes a lot of sense also in part because the LSU turned into a much more like quarterback-centric offense, this past year anyway. They also lose the assistant coach who was largely responsible for that in Joe Brady, in Greg Brady. So, that raises more questions as to what else they can come up with. So, we'll turn it over to Crambles here. Chandler, real quick. Do you agree with Keith's assessment? Would you change anything? Take it away, sir.
I agree. I think the quarterback issues obviously are the biggest one. A lot of coaching turnover. They didn't just lose the offensive coordinator; they lost defensive coordinator as well. And I think their schedule is, it's typical SEC West schedule. But you look, you've got they got to go to Auburn. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. I don't think they're going to beat Florida. And they've got an early game with Texas. Those are kind of the swing games in that conversation. So I think 9-3 is pretty spot on.
All right, great. Would you make any changes to what Keith is saying here?
I feel like that's a pretty conservative ceiling for what LSU is bringing back. There's always the potential for, when we saw it last year, there's potential for some breakout, player that can turn a pretty average season into something pretty special. But it's hard to say that when you had a record-breaking offense the year before. I think 9-3 is a pretty conservative ceiling for them. Also, based on the schedule as well. I think that's a pretty good assessment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm going to make one little change here is I think a lot of their success, because they're losing a player like Joe Burrow who meshed so well with those star wide receivers and Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall, Jefferson, all of that, I think that they're going to have to shift a little bit back to some of their older way of thinking. And I think a lot of their success is going to rely on John Emery Jr., the running back, rising up to being that 5-star recruit, highly touted running back that he was coming out of high school. I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot more because Helaire had a lot of success because, the passing game was killing it. So he was a great change of pace for that. I think they're going to have to rely a lot more on Emery. And if he can be a Leonard Fournette bell cow type of back for him, then that's going to absolutely define a lot. It's going to be the opposite. Instead of the passing game last year helping set up the running game so well, they're going to have to go back to the running game. Is going to have to be successful to set up those passes to Chase, to Marshall, from the majestic arm of Miles Brennan. There you go. That's my addition. But otherwise, yeah, Spot on, Keith. Thank you, sir, for opening up this discussion so strongly. All right, jumping to the other side. And it kind of didn't really click with me until just a few minutes ago that we're going to be talking about 3 teams that are having to have massive quarterback job vacancies. 3 teams that for the past several years have really been defined, or I mean for LSU only last year really, but were defined by their quarterback play. Success, the highs and the lows, really defined by those players. So let's jump over to the East and the team that won the East last year, Georgia. Gray, I believe you, being a resident of the state, have some insider information. What do you think is the best case scenario for the Bulldogs this time around?
Well, I didn't get a whole lot of inside information. I was just way too busy today to be getting reconnaissance on the Bulldogs, but I have done a little research. Offensively, Georgia is not returning a lot of starters from an offense that is pretty bland, to say the least, from what we've seen the past few years anyway. I think that there is potential for Jamie Newman and Pickens to have a kind of a cool connection going there. I think Pickens is ready to break out and be a big player in the SEC. He's got a lot of talent if he can get his mind right. Stop fighting, folks. But yeah, they're losing a lot of production offensively. They're
I'm
still
just laughing
loaded
about the
on
fact
defense.
that you just turned into a 73-year-old man. And I just wish he'd get his mind right. Stop trying to fight, folks. Get out there and just play
So
ball.
when I take my break at work,
field, son.
I sit with a group of regulars that come in, and I mean I've probably heard that same phrase out of their mouths like every day.
That's the best.
Like for the last few months.
That's the best. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. But defensively, they are going to be very stout. It's just that offense. I mean, just from what we've seen for 3-4 years, it's just so. I mean, the 5-yard out route, the slant that we've seen from Fromm for years.
Hey, 10-yard slants are very exciting.
I run them all the time on Madden. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out, but if they can, I think the key is going to be Newman, obviously, from what we've seen from transfer quarterbacks in the SEC this past year. If he can turn that production up from what we've seen out of Georgia, I think they have some potential to be, be in the running for the East along with Florida. I think their ceiling is 10-2. They don't get any favors with the schedule, having to play in Tuscaloosa early in the year. That's going to be a big challenge with an offense that hasn't had a lot of time to gel. They do get kind of a little tune-up at the beginning, having to play Virginia. It's a Power 5 team, but not a Power 5 team that you would probably associate with one of those early season kind of opening kickoff games like you would normally see, like an Oregon or that we've seen in the past. And then I believe they have UL Monroe after that, maybe. Let me double check. East Tennessee State. So
pretty close.
They have pretty close. But I don't know if having those 2 games right there before having to go to Tuscaloosa is going to be exactly what they need. And then also, I mean, that Florida game, that has potential to be the game of the season in the SEC, in my opinion. That's going to determine a lot. But I think if they can get everything cranked up and going, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think they got potential to be 10-2 for their ceiling, and win the East.
So even with the question marks, you're still thinking that the East as a whole is not in a position to necessarily take over from them. Like it'll at least still be a fight. Is that kind of what your assessment of the East right now might be?
It's going to be a fight. I think. Say what you want to say about Tennessee, but I think they are on the uptick. They're having to play Kentucky and Lexington. That can be kind of a sneaky game. They're playing South Carolina.
And Kroger Field.
We've seen Kroger Field ain't no joke. We've seen what South Carolina can do. If they can win the games that they're expected to win, I think 10-2 is the ceiling. But I think that the SEC East is getting a little bit better. But if they can get those question marks answered in a pretty reasonable time at the beginning of the year, I say 10-2.
All right. Keith, I'm gonna let you start off the questioning here. Do you agree with this assessment? Would you make any changes to it?
Actually, probably not. It is a little jarring to say that your best case scenario is 10-2, given the amount of turnover that they have on offense. But when you look at them compared to the rest of the East, it makes a lot of sense. Just because outside of Florida, like the East just isn't very good. Like you'll have one or two teams that are going to be pretty good, but no other teams really at the top of that division that are going to present like a substantially consistent fight. So, I mean, Kirby Smart's a good coach. Not really known for his offense, but they found a way to be effective on offense the last 2 years, even though it's been, that meme of the 10-yard over the middle pass for Jake Fromm. They found a way to be good. So,
and I mean, they have a low, in my opinion, they have a pretty low floor too. I just think that if they can, like Zamir White, if he can have that ground game that they're known for, and all of these kind of unknowns come together. But if they don't, I mean, they could easily lose. I mean, they're playing Auburn. It's in Athens, but they got to play Auburn, Florida, Bama, South Carolina's sneaky.
Never know.
That Lexington game, Kentucky game in Lexington can be kind of sneaky. So
I mean, they could very well be at the end of the year looking at a 6-6 record. I mean,
no,
I don't think it's out of the.
No,
you don't think so?
No chance.
No chance.
No.
0 chance.
0 chance.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
I mean, look. Obviously, like if their whole team gets COVID-19 and they don't play or whatever, like
never know, man.
But they're like, I think their ceiling is 12-0 because I don't necessarily think that they're gonna beat all those teams, but I think their defense is gonna be good enough to beat Alabama early in the season, as Alabama may still be figuring some things out on offense. I think their defense is going to be good enough to keep them in every game, and if Jamie Newman is if he's a good quarterback, then they can win all those games. Now, I mean, obviously, I don't necessarily think that they will, but if the conversation is what their ceiling is, I'm not sold on the East as being there quite yet. I think the East gets really interesting next year, but I think this year they're still, it's still Florida and then kind of a bunch of paper tigers that, could beat them in one game, but don't really pose a serious threat to them. So, I mean, I think, obviously 6-6 is possible, assuming just absolute devastation. But I think the defense is too talented for that to happen.
I like it. I like that we got differing opinions going on here. It's solid. It's solid. I don't know if I have anything to add to that. Other than the fact that Georgia, to me right now, is one of the bigger unknowns of a program when I look at the SEC. Even going into last year, it's like, okay. I mean, we said it a million times on the podcast, but like, Jake Fromm was not a quarterback that was going to win you games, like if you had to force him to have to win you a game, like you really want the game to be playing out and let him be in his natural rhythm of things. And the moment that he lost Mecole Hardman, the moment he lost any deep threat, any speed on the outside that he had as far as receiving goes, you saw the change in what they were last year, and it quickly became slant routes at best, and that was about it. Going into this year, we don't even have that anymore. We don't even have any of that. So yeah, I feel like they're one of the bigger question marks. So I'm unsure, but for me, the bigger question comes down to: is there anyone in the East that is ready to take the reins from them? And I mean, we'll talk about Florida more next week, but that's the biggest question to me, is because there's been a couple of times in the past couple of seasons in which it's kind of felt like Georgia's vulnerable, who's going to take over? And no one has. It's still Georgia winning the East. So could just be that again. Who knows? Who knows? Chandler, you have the always enviable task of telling us about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, talking about a team that lost a lot, the only team that really lost more this past year than, as far as talent goes, than Alabama was LSU, essentially. Tua Tagovailoa is gone. Ruggs and Judy are both gone. As far as the receiving threats, the temptation might be for Alabama to to turn back a little bit to their earlier ways in the Derrick Henry and before him Mark Ingram era of ground and pound with Najee Harris, but I guess a lot of that comes down to whether it's Mac Jones or what's his face, the freshman from Mater Dei, Bryce Young, right? That's his name.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Who's actually
that's Chandler's close personal friend, Najee Harris.
Of course, yes.
He followed me on Goodreads there for a little while.
Yeah. His
the
book club friend.
The world's most popular social media platform, Goodreads.
Yeah,
true. We have to put that preface in there. So, all right.
Right.
So Chandler, what's the best case scenario for the Crimson Tide?
12-0 national championship. I think that obviously you lose Tua, which is a big deal, but I mean, we saw Mac Jones. He's capable. He's capable of being pretty good. He's got what's his name, Devonta Smith coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously got Najee Harris. I mean, there's going to be somebody else. There's going to be another wide receiver that's going to step up.
They got a Tyrell Shavers. I don't know if you pronounce it Shavers or not, but he's like super tall, and I'm a sucker for a tall wide receiver. You get a 6'6" wide receiver out there, I'm like, okay, all right, I like this.
Yeah, me too. All in. So, I think that they're certainly capable of winning every game they play. And I think their defense, like a lot got made of their defense last season because they did give up some points, but they had a lot of freshmen and they had a lot of injuries. And now they've got a lot of sophomores and a lot of healthy guys. So I think that bodes well for them if there is a little bit of a quarterback struggle early on. Remember 2015, I think it was, where there was the struggle early on between Cooper Bateman and Jake Coker, and they settled on Jake Coker and won a national championship. It took them 3 or 4 games to figure that out. And so, I think they're more than capable of winning a lot. And I think that there's not a ton in the West this season that's going to threaten them all that much. So if they can get through that Georgia game, and then the they may be playing USC the first game of the season. They may not be. They may be playing. Rumor is that TCU might fill that spot, and if TCU fills that spot, really it doesn't matter if it's USC or TCU. But I'd say USC's got a 5% chance of beating them, and TCU's got like a 0.5% chance of beating them. And that may just be because USC still has the name recognition. So, I think they're gonna be really good again. And I also think that there's nobody in the West that is going to be able to really threaten them. So,
all right, Gray, I'm going to send it over to you. Do you agree? Is there anything you would change about Chandler's assessment?
I mean, it's Alabama. I mean, the ceiling is undefeated national champions. What I saw out of Mac Jones was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, you take Tua out of the equation, and I mean, he ranks pretty high up there on the Alabama quarterbacks in the Nick Saban tenure. At least, I mean, from the limited amount of time that I saw. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have the ground game going. Go ahead, Chandler.
Well, I was just saying, I was thinking about Mac Jones earlier, and it was like, well, he's not Tua, but he's not Greg McElroy either.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he's closer to Tua than he is to Greg McElroy.
Yeah, like they've won national championships with way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of breakout guys they have on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it just seems like they just reload on that side of the ball all the time. But they still have Raekwon Davis, right? He's coming back. Or did he get drafted?
No, he went.
I just can't remember. I can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah.
I've been sportsless for so long.
I know.
He got drafted by the Dolphins.
Yeah, he went to Miami.
Okay, gotcha. Well, it doesn't matter. They're still going to be really good.
Doesn't matter what your name is.
Also, the West has lost a lot of the eliteness, I guess you would say, from the last season. And I don't know if Alabama's drop off is going to be as big as some other teams in the West.
Yeah, the West kind of has a bit of turmoil going on. Keith, you got anything you want to add or change?
Yeah, I mean it's Nick Saban. As long as he's there recruiting the players that he's used to recruiting, Mac Jones is a big deal coming in. There's not going to be a ton of drop off between he and Tua. So, I mean, and as you guys said, that the West is going to be a little bit weaker than it has been in the past. So, I don't doubt for a minute that their ceiling is undefeated. NC.
Yeah, if there would be a year for Alabama to, rise back up, that this is obviously it. When their only real competition in the West last year was LSU, who lost all the key players from that team. And so that's what does the Crimson Tide have to do? Yeah, I'm glad you guys pointed out about Mac Jones. To me, kind of reminds me of like the next of that line of efficient and successful Alabama quarterbacks, as like a Greg McElroy, like an AJ McCarron, that type that was there for a little while, that was never necessarily going to blow your mind when they made plays. Not a game-breaking playmaker like Tua turned out to be, anything like that. But like you guys said, Mac Jones does seem to have more of an arm than them, a little bit more of that gusto a bit, That being said, I think that I think Saban has proven at this point, especially with the way he handled things with Hurts and Tagovailoa, that if Mac doesn't quite give them what they need, if they need a little bit more of a spark out of the quarterback position, and he's not doing that, he is more along the lines of a McCarron or a McElroy, or any of the other MC named quarterbacks they had in that train of thought. I forgot that kind of happened. Then I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn to Bryce Young early on and just see if he brings that extra spark. Because if there's anything we know about Nick Saban, it's that if he's not winning immediately, then it's just a waste of his time. He's going to make a change.
Right.
Gonna make a change. So, all right. That's the first 3 teams crossed off our list. Let me pull it up real quick and double check and make sure. Next time around, gentlemen, we will be covering Florida, Auburn, and believe it or not, the Tennessee Volunteers. Everyone's favorite team to discuss, the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee with one of the few locked in place possibly quarterback situations, which is odd. The SEC has a lot of quarterback changes this year, but I guess
I kind of feel like Guantanamo Bay being locked in is kind of an indictment of the SEC as a whole.
Well, keep in mind, I didn't say locked in quarterbacks. I said locked in place quarterback situations. Tennessee flip-flopped a lot last year between Jarrett Guantano and whoever the other guy was. I forgot. I think they might do it again. I don't know. We'll discuss it next time around on the next episode. But
they're going to run the historically effective double quarterback system.
Well, you know what they've always said about 2 quarterback systems. If you've got a 2 quarterback system, then you've got a national title winning program.
I mean, Florida ran 2 quarterbacks back in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. They won a national title.
Saying. All right, boyos. Thank you for helping me break in this brand new season of Running Out the Clock. I'm going to give everyone an opportunity here as we round out the episode to just tell me how excited you are about the possibility of having football again this fall. The only stipulation being all 3 of you must talk at once. Go.
Well, there's probably going to be a
I'm Alan Matthews level excited.
It's probably not going to be.
I would be more excited.
I am every bit as excited as I was when Don Ridley found that Cutlass Supreme.
Again, as if I hadn't seen it before.
Thank you for listening to this episation of Running Out the Clock. We'll see you next time.